estate. And I've got two people that are probably going to be my realest, my rawest, and hopefully put some people on blast. So I've got, right now, we are going to do a little bit of switcheroo because no, Chauncey Pham is not Ashley Gentry with Red Branch Realty. There we go. It's the great Oz in the background like we discussed. So we've got Chauncey Pham, Phamily Realty Group, EXP Realty, Marketing Ninja, friend and fellow TRLP alumni. Chauncey, thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And Mark, will you pronounce your last name so I don't butcher it?
It's really not that bad. It's Karetskiy.
That's what I said, but I was second guessing.
It's why I go by Loan Officer Mark.
Loan Officer Mark.
It's a whole lot easier.
Yes. So Loan Officer Mark is here. He is also a great advocate for training, masterminding, leveling up, all things real estate. And that's what we wanted to talk about today, was to really, let's talk about what's going on, guys, because I don't know about you, but every other conversation I'm having with people in real estate and out of real estate is the market crashing? Chicken Little, the sky is falling. Is it softening? Is it a good time to buy? Why would you buy right now? That's ridiculous. I'm going to rent for the next 9 years. You know? And you're laughing because it's so true.
So bad.
It's so bad. So, you know, so let's talk about that first. Are we going to crash?
No.
No.
No. No.
I mean, I think we should start with, are we rational?
Oh, well, that's a whole other conversation, Mark.
Well, I mean, like, based on everything we're seeing, like, and everything we've talked about in the pre-show, I think we clearly know that no, we're not.
Yeah. So give me a little bit of stats. You were talking about that yesterday, as far as what you were reading in some current articles, as far as the projection of appreciation and where we're kind of going over the next year or so.
Well, there's a lot that we could go into, but I mean, the main thing I would say is most people do not put enough credit on really the power of demographics and the age demographics specifically in Texas and the DFW. We in America are the youngest superpower. We are the youngest G7 economy. We have literally, for the last 5 years, coincidentally had more 33-year-olds every year than the year before. And we happen to, for the next 3 to 4 years, happen to have more 33-year-olds every year than the year before that. And guess what the first-time homebuyer age group is? 32 to 33 years old. As much inventory as we have in the DFW, meaning like houses, like we have houses everywhere. I did not grow up in the DFW. I grew up in the Northeast. I've never seen so many amazing locations and communities. What we have is not nearly enough for what our demographics call for. And clearly it's showing in every single county that we're doing business in. So I think you guys see it on the ground just as much as I do. I see it anecdotally with all of your guys' contracts that end up executing. And I mean, this is still, I mean, it's a little bit of a softening, but thank God, because I mean, what were we doing 3 months ago? We were complaining about how busy we were and we couldn't get offers accepted. And now we're being given what we wanted and we're complaining.
So I would liken this to, we went from Squid Games to like American Gladiators.
And I liken it to like, we were on meth. We were kind of on crack. The market was kind of crackish, you know? And now it's like, it's just a little like California, it's a little medical marijuana-ish, you know? Like we've stepped it down a notch on you know, just being so just crazy and high. It's still a hyper market, but it is not anything like it was, but it is leveling out, but that does not mean that it is plummeting. And I think that's where people, and really it's not even leveling out that well. Let's not get too crazy, because it really depends on, you know, what area that we're talking about, the price point, really the house. You know, I just put a flip on the market a week ago. in the $400,000 price range, and we had like 10 offers in the first 24 hours, over asking. So it's just the perfect storm right now. Like Shay Reeve said, no zero down loans. We've got piles of equity, low interest rates, limited inventory, growth projections for, people that are migrating into Texas. So the demand is just there. Like the sky is not falling. But the consumer is having a really, really difficult time understanding this. And I actually had a little mini argument with someone on Facebook the other day, a consumer. And he was saying, like, people are paying $500,000 for $250,000 houses. And I said, sir, they're paying $500,000 for $500,000 houses. Do you say I'm paying $3 a gallon for 99 cents a gallon gas? Just because when you were in high school in 1995, gas was 97 cents a gallon? No. At this point, that is what the market is calling for. And they also don't understand construction costs. Because back in 2012, you could build a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom home for $180,000. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. But now that same house, construction-wise, like the cost is $350,000.
Well, and I think that's what we have to kind of look at is the fact of, and this is technology in the making, guys, because we are live, so work with us while we get the echoing fixed.
How is it now? Because I didn't hear it. Is it
better?
A little bit better. We're gonna work through it. So here's the difference as far as that goes. And of course, Sherry Fierbacher, my lovely mother, vodka shots to a glass of Chardonnay. She likes to temper that just a little bit. She does love her Chardonnay. But no, I mean, I think that's where it is. It's supply and demand. And again, we're talking about increased prices in food, in gas, in everything else. But God forbid, where you live, your largest asset, increase and appreciate. And how dare we? We should all be flocked and put in prison for participating in such an egregious market. Now, here's the flip side. If it was that case, I wouldn't have just bought a house and closed in June.
Right.
So,
and me in July.
Yes. And as a real estate professional, I sat there and quantified. I love where the interest rates are. So check one, my house is worth more than it was when I purchased it. Check two. And it had everything I wanted. It had my wood floors. It had already been completely redone. It had the gorgeous kitchen with the high-end appliances. All the vinyl windows had been replaced. Gorgeous.
It sounds like an invite if I've ever heard of it.
I will absolutely have it because as we discussed,
to the world.
Mark, you and I are some of the palest individuals that will be on this show. And so we could probably use some pool time. But for me, it was, okay, I can sit here, pay what some think is a premium, I think is a steal, because I know if I have to do all of these things to that house, I'm going to have to pay $125,000. So I can go and buy a $400,000 house, put 125 into it, spend $5.25 when I just bought this one for $470. Oh, and by the way, it's worth $5.25 today, 4 months later.
Right.
So, so that was the thing. And Mark, that's what you said, between where interest rates were and where the projection of appreciation is over kind of the year to the next 18 months. Talk about your parents who aren't ready to move here, but decided to start looking.
Well, so, I mean, going back to really the outsiders and the transplants moving in, like I'm one of them, right? I came here in 2018. We're looking at this market as a better way of life, a lower cost of living, and less or more disposable income because most of us are coming from state tax areas, right? So we're looking at the market saying this is better than what we know and it's cheaper than what we know. Mm-hmm. We also, in 2018, started seeing us get to that 4-month, 6-month inventory. Yeah, that's because interest rates were 4.875 when you had an 800 FICO, right? So what happened was we entered into like arguably the most affordable housing economy to the 6th or 7th most affordable housing economy in the history of mankind. Right? Because other than America, not many countries even have property ownership. That's one of like my most favorite American things as an immigrant is the right to own property and actually profit from it. I read yesterday, it was from my good friend, and he's a Housing Wire. He's one of their lead analysts, Logan Motoshami. He posted Goldman Sachs, they're expecting supply side to push appreciation to 18.6% for 2023. I'm looking at our market. I mean, Dallas year over year, as of, I think it was August, it might be September now, it was 23, almost 24% appreciation. But what we're really seeing is our cost of living is going up, right? Like we all see it, and we see it every single day. And the ones that are really being harmed by it are the locals. And they are the ones that are the most really skeptical of what they're seeing.
Because they're the ones that have benefited from it for the longest amount of time. And now you've got everybody else coming in and ruining it because they're saying, oh my gosh, you have no idea what you have here.
Well, they didn't take advantage of the most affordable times of the DFW. And the ones that did, I mean, I had buyers last year that had $150,000 in appreciation in a year. Yep. Like I have buyers that we helped with down payment assistance in 2018 that literally have they have 25% equity while just going from FHA loan to FHA loan. Like what we're seeing as far as like what this has actually done to the consumers that listened and to the consumers that really took that step to really get into the housing market, they're the ones that are looking around like, oh my God, what do we do now, right? Because that's what we're seeing is all of a sudden we realize we don't like our house anymore. Holy crap, we've got a ton of equity. And interest rates are arguably lower than when the last time you bought. So you're looking around going, wait, the purchase price, that's not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at my payment. And my payment is telling me I can go a lot higher on my purchase price. Yep. With interest rates starting to go up, part of what's going on is the Federal Reserve, they're finally starting to let off the amount that they are purchasing in mortgage-backed securities. It's called tapering. So they're going to be buying less mortgage-backed securities. Mortgage-backed securities and the price of them, that's what really affects interest rates. So we're seeing a deterioration in that because they're stepping back. So what we're seeing is for that same house that we had 3 months ago, your payment is higher because interest rates went from like 2.8, 2.9 to 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, right? And so now all of a sudden I'm getting a lot of urgency, and I love when this happens, of course, but it always happens when interest rates go up. Nobody really cares, and everybody looks around like, oh yeah, interest rates are low, I don't need to do anything. It's when interest rates start going up that we really
So that is the Mark, that's the I want to have my cake and eat it too. So yeah, interest rates are low, but this market is crazy. So then interest rates go up. It's the takeaway effect, as I like to call it. So now let's create that urgency and everything else. And what you said, and I'd love for Chauncey to chime in on, but you said the problem is that most people in the real estate industry do not know economics. They don't know how to speak the language. And it's not just about opening doors and sending comparative market analysis or having access to MLS. So Chauncey, where does that come in for you, seeing different angles? Because you are an investor, you are a business owner, you are an entrepreneur. You know, I think you got into real estate because you had 4 crappy realtors in a row. Is that correct?
Yes, literally that's what happened. But no, I 100% agree. We aren't as realtors doing a very good job of conveying our value and what our position is in all of this, because quite frankly, most of us don't understand economics. We don't understand that we're actually business owners and that we've got to understand the broader picture and the larger picture if we are to understand what our position is in that space, right? And so, we kind of went into this conversation before, and so it's kind of a small little pivot from the market, or if this is a good time to buy. But again, I think agents have a hard time understanding that first and foremost they're entrepreneurs before they're just realtors, and because of that, they don't look outside of, like you said, running a CMA or opening doors. Or even just providing a solution for selling a house on the retail market and putting a sign in the yard and having traditional showings. They have a very hard time analyzing the data and understanding, that I need to have all of these different solutions in my brain so that as I'm speaking to consumers and they have different problems, I can provide a solution. And so I really think that has a lot to do with, the entry, the training, the classes to become a realtor should really be more focused on the economic side of things, on the entrepreneurial side of things, so that as agents are coming into this, they understand that it's more about, understanding all of those broader perspectives than it is running a CMA and understanding the difference between engineered wood and, a tile, which is ultimately what I think a lot of people think when they get into the business.
So, this is the thing, and we talked about it. It's mentality. It's setting proper expectations. It's having those hard conversations. When I get a referral right now, and I only work by referral, because the best way I can help you with the largest purchase of your life is to know that we have a trusted, respected relationship. And so from that standpoint, and I am echoing again, aren't I? So that's okay. We're going to play a little drinking game. I'm echoing, so I'm going to take a drink. We're going to keep on going. But from that standpoint, it's setting those expectations up front, because what's happening is, and I think the lethargy is happening because agents are having to write 8 to 10 to 12 offers for buyers, and they're getting fatigued and they're getting discouraged. Instead of having those hard conversations up front in tandem with a credible lender like Mark or somebody else to say, look, here's the expectation of what this is going to look like. Yes, it's going to be a battle. We will win out, but you might need to be a little patient, and we might need to be tactical. And it's setting those proper expectations, but the barrier of entry is very low. Most realtors right now that are entering into the marketplace, it's because they think they get flexibility in their schedule, which is less cool. Because I go, are you ready to be flexible like a pretzel?
That's what Google tells us.
Yes, you can be flexible. I mean, I use this analogy with you guys yesterday. It's like sitting there and saying, you know what, I think I'm going to open up a restaurant because I've been really nailing those home fresh kits, putting my own spin on it. So let's do it. And then but you get into real estate with $17 to your name, not realizing you're an entrepreneur, business owner. You need cash to scale, to not be leveraged, which means to do right by the consumer and not have to worry about whether or not you can pay your real estate dues or buy extra signs or anything else. That's a part of doing business. And so that goes back to what you said, Chauncey, is realtors don't realize that we are entrepreneurs and business owners first, which then in turn puts us in a precarious position, backed into a corner, to have to do transactions to be able to live and pay our bills. And that's unacceptable. Yep,
100%. And I don't know if it's the industry in general, or again, if it goes back to the education and just the barrier, the entry. Like I don't know where it comes from, but it is.
Yeah, you do. It's the schools. We talked about it, right?
I guess it is the schools. I mean, they're teaching meets and bounds, and all of these things that they're cool to know, but in reality, agents get out of real estate school and they're still employees in the brain, and we're throwing them out expecting them to be CEOs, and they are not even prepared mentally and mindset wise to even understand that that's where they are. And so it's very frustrating. But I think that if we could tweak that and help people understand what they're actually walking into, we could fix a lot of the problems that we have.
and there's not a one size fits all approach in this. Some people want the ninja selling coaching program. Some people like Brian Buffini. Others want Tony Robbins. Others want to be in a firm that really, digs down and is training focused and doing that, or seeking out masterminds, or doing whatever. That's the whole thing. Whatever works for you to get you in that right mindset is what's best. But the problem is that, again, Mark, you talked about this as a first generation immigrant, that having home ownership is key. And it's the difference between thriving or surviving, building generational wealth. And so you come from different perspectives, being on the Northeast in the United States. And I grew up in Southern New Jersey, so I'm with you.
Bless your heart.
Yeah. Hey, it was the pretty part of Jersey, though, why they call it the Garden State.
The pretty part.
The pretty part. I had orchards in my background. But you sit there. I know everybody, when they find out, fist pump. I'm like, no, I don't fist pump.
Yeah, bruh.
Yeah, bruh. I do say brah, though. I think that's just, I don't know what happens. But going back to that, it's the fact of, we need to realize that there's so much more into this. And if we can dissect why each individual buyer wants to buy a home, then we won't stifle that process. Right now, I've literally had realtors that have said, when I've contacted them as a listing agent, bless you, I won't take a buyer right now. What are you talking about? What do you mean you won't take a buyer? I've told them to wait a year or two and to call me then, because I won't take a buyer. That's just crazy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is exactly what's wrong with this. We have to put on extra armor. You have to be prepared. But to me, I'm sitting there and going, gosh, that is a referral source for the next 20 years. If I put on that offer, I do right by that buyer, I get them in that house, and then they do want to level up in 3 years because of their fantastic equity. And then I get to do it all over again, and they're lazy.
Yep.
Lazy. And there's an evolution in what we need to do to hold each other more accountable. And that's the hard part. We talked about this yesterday, which was, what do we do? Because if we don't demand more of our counterparts and ourselves, somebody else is going to come in and demand it of us. And no, we don't want extra regulations. No, I don't think the government is the appropriate entity to sit there and regulate real estate. And so we need to figure out what we need to do to hold each other accountable and level up, because now is the time. So Chauncey, what have you done in your business? Because when we met 3 years ago, you were in a different place in your business than you are now, but it's because you're solution-based. You see what's going on in front of you, and you're willing to be agile and pivot. So what can we do to do better, to be more entrepreneurial, to be more agile?
That's such a loaded question. So I think there are a couple of things that we can do. So as an industry, I think we do a very poor job of understanding and conveying to new agents that get into the business who is their best resource, which to me, this is my opinion, our best resource is each other. Not a brokerage, not a team leader, not a broker. It's other real estate professionals that have actually built successful businesses.
Yep.
But the problem with our industry is there is absolutely zero incentive for us to help each other. We're competition. So we complain about Susie Q, who gets into the business and writes horrible offers, or has horrible communication, or doesn't understand economics, or doesn't understand, how to read financial reports and all of these things, but then we're not willing to help. So I think the first step is looking at this industry as if we are a collective body and that we all represent each other, and that we have got to collaborate and stop holding our secrets tight to our chest, because there's enough out here for all of us to eat. And none of us are going to eat if we allow others to continue to work. Okay? So I think that's the first thing. And then, really, no, that solves all of our problems. That's it. That's it. I think if we collaborated as agents with other agents and figured out a way to kind of like transcend brokerage lines and transcend all of these weird competition things that we have in our brain with each other that we would do a lot better. And that's how I kind of pivoted in my business. I started taking all of these random like pick Chauncey's brain session calls. And they would be with agents from all different brokerages. They would just be, you know, asking me questions. I would learn so much about what they were good at. I would tell them what I was good at. We would share things. We'd bounce ideas off of each other, feature each other on social media, you know, practice a little bit of parasite marketing. And guys, my business exploded because I came from a place of contribution instead of from a place of you know, scarcity, and just thinking that if I shared my knowledge and what I knew about the business, that I would be losing something. And instead, I've built a wonderful community of agents that, you know me, like me, trust me, that has kind of exploded my business. So I think really that's the key.
Well, and yes, Sherry Fearbacher, we can raise the industry standard collectively. So she's in agreement, Chauncey, and again, that is my mother, and sometimes she is hard to please. So go you. But and by the way, mother slash.
She got you out of Jersey, right?
She did get me out of Jersey. She brought me to Texas. She grew up in the South, so we're back where we need to be. But she is also, we co-own our firm together, and you know, her passion is training and education, and it's really hard to sit there and think that people don't want to train and educate themselves, and that's where it comes down to. Training and education doesn't look the same to everybody. That's what I was saying. I literally made my mother read out loud my required reading when I was in school. I hated to read. I hated to read books. I was a very intelligent child and all the talented and gifted, you know, graduated 2 years early, hated to read. But now I realize it's not because I didn't want to consume information. I'm an auditory learner. I love Audible. So I consume in Audible format all the time. I just wasn't the person that was going to sit there and read. So I had to figure that out. I found books on tape before they even had books on tape. So, you know, Great Gatsby, books on tape, very long, but it was worth it. So, you know, I mean, those are the things where if the traditional environment, like you said, Chauncey, a brokerage in a training room, all of those things is not what's going to get you excited. Go find something else. Go find a mastermind. Go talk to different agents. But you have to actively seek it. This is a proactive sport.
Yes.
You know, so we can help one another, but you have to be willing to help yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and you know what created that for me is people asked, why was I going to do TRLP, which is our leadership program through our Realtor Association? They're like, that's just with a bunch of realtors. That's not going to better your business. I don't know. You know what? I see other losers doing it. So surely I can do it better. I literally had this conversation with myself. If that just graduated from TRLP, I need to. And so it was the FOMO effect that got me in. That's Chauncey, where I met you. We did the ropes course together. And yes, you did bail on me. We were partners in the ropes course. We were both afraid of heights. Yeah, and Chauncey's like, all right, girl, we got this. We're both in
4 years later.
Yes, and she's like, let's do this. We're going to get through the ropes.
Talk about never forget, by the way.
No, but hold on. I look behind me and I go, Chauncey? Chauncey? She's gone. She's
like climbing back down the ladder.
Was there like smoke behind her? Like,
there was smoke. Here I am. I literally, this was my redemption time because in 8th grade, I did a ropes course and every mean freaking kid made fun of me. They literally called me because there was a dog there named Wendy. And of course, I gravitate towards the dog and I'm playing. And they're like, why are you playing? I like dogs better than people, whatever. So I get up there and I freeze and they're chanting constipated Wendy. Yeah, that was my nickname because I was literally just like this. And I did. I looked constipated and it was horrible and it stuck with me. I tell this to Chauncey. I say, redemption, Chauncey. I am not letting those 8th grade kids get me again. She's gone. And I literally go like this. Okay, Lord, you're with me. I'm not going to die. And I run through that entire thing. And
you were sweating. You were sweating.
I never looked such a jerk. And I still, but for me, that was what I got out of that was I got somebody who, if I did need to reach out and bounce things off of, I could with you. And creating that cohesion, that was the real light bulb for me to say, this group of people that are not in my brokerage, in my business model, in my backyard of my business, they're here for me. And I still, when I have a tough situation or need to bounce ideas, I can call all of them and we talk about it, and vice versa, and mentor one another. And so for me, that's why I've continued on in my association work, because it's filled my cup so much. Being in an independent brokerage where it is a smaller unit, I get the best of both worlds. And that's not for everybody. So, for somebody else, maybe it's not getting involved in the association. It's just doing more cohesive masterminds and marketing and going across the country and just expanding your influence. And I think we just have to look at that in its entirety. What's best for us? I mean, Mark, you've grown your business exponentially over the past few years. And I think it's really interesting how you said you really had to get inward first before you could do that. So talk a little bit about that, because I think that's the flip side.
Yeah, so it's been a fun journey. So I got into the business. I'm 29. You can tell, got my baby face. I got in at 21. So this is literally all I know. I tell my buyers all the time, this is all I'm good at. Like, when it comes to adulting, don't talk to me. When it comes to mortgage, real estate, talk to me. All right. But so I cut my teeth on the refinance side of the business for the first 4 years. I got to see intimately what the homeowner life actually looks like before I got into helping people buy. And so when I came here in 2018, I saw the writing on the wall. I saw what was going on. I saw that really I needed to build a brand and get into purchase. And I wasn't going to stay in Maryland, which is where I was. I got an incredible opportunity, came to the DFW, came to North Dallas. And I mean, honestly, I was naive enough to think like I can do it. And then I came here and like reality hit and I just like fell flat on my face. And it was the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me. I ended up, it was November of 18 that I was like, dude, like you for what you want, you don't deserve. Like I got real. And it was for me to be what I aim to be, I need to grow exponentially. And I gave myself the time and I created the time. And I went from rolling out of bed at 8 to getting up at 5 and going to the gym every morning and listening to the podcast and listening to the books on Audible and really putting in the work. And really what I ended up doing was going to some of the top agents, some of the top lenders, and really figuring out, and because if you do ask, people do share. It's just most of us aren't being asked and we don't really, we feel like if we share too much, I don't know. It's a self-conscious thing, I think, for most of us. But really what it was I figured out what are the people doing that is working? What are the people not doing that I should be doing? And started kind of just sprinkling the magic together, right? And I mean, none of that could have happened with who I was in 2018. But as soon as that became the motive and that became the driver, that's where the business picked up and the confidence came and the attraction came, right? I think you guys all, or both of you, I know I can see on the screen, you know how attraction works, right? Like you've got to have that self-confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
And I had to put in the work. Like it was as simple as that. Like I did not deserve, or I had to figure out. So going back to the transition, I had done one purchase loan in my career. It was for my old coworker who was a loan officer who got out of the business, who used a Redfin agent, who I never spoke to. So I had never spoken with a real estate agent. I had no idea what a real estate agent's life, like what are the pain points, what are the pleasure points, like what are we, like square one, right? So I had to figure that out. And I realized, oh my God, agents are on a complete island. The complete opposite of what's going on the mortgage side, where we collaborate with everybody in both our market and across the nation, and we do it in every medium out there. We don't have that for the real estate agent, and it didn't make sense, right? And so really what I started doing was being myself. I had the confidence, I had the knowledge, and in reality, I had the backing and the support system in my company to be able to say, we can do this, and I'm not BSing you, we're going to exceed your expectations. And I mean, really, it's how have I built my business? It's by being honest, and it's by being and acting in my client's best interest. I tell them all the time, as much as I am here, you're talking to me because you want to buy a house. And me, the first generation immigrant, I'll tell you my story. Like, I have a passion for helping you buy a house. Y'all, my job is literally to put you in debt. I take that seriously. Like,
yes,
we're going to do it responsibly. We're going to do it with what are your best interests in mind. And that's how we're going to approach it. And really, when you do that and you actually follow through on it, guess what? People don't see that in their day-to-day life. So they're going to refer you.
yes.
And so I went from working in a call center, not knowing what a real estate agent is or does, to really having real estate agents as my target market because they need the support, because they're not getting it from their broker, from their team lead, or from the industry, up until Chauncey came along, and now she is killing it. And why is she killing it? Because she brings that confidence and that presence and that community to where we're now empowered to actually share ideas and bounce things off of each other and actually be better for it.
Now, Mark, I need to interject for a second. You're on my show at the moment, and I brought you here to bring this energy and this knowledge. So I'm going to need a little reciprocation at the same time. Okay.
Actually, I mean, girl, the day I met you, which, by the way, Chris Sullivan, thank you for that introduction.
Yes.
Oh, Sully did it?
Big Sully.
No, Sully did it.
Oh, man, of course. He owes me a phone call, by the way, so we're going to give him shit later for it.
Yes.
But I mean, that is right. Like, it's none of that comes until you have the self-confidence.
Yeah.
You don't deserve the self-confidence until you put in the work and get your hands dirty.
Yes.
I've got one better. I have a thought on that as well. And I think that something that we should be teaching new agents, and something that I teach all of the agents that come into my group, and something that I think we really suck at in real estate with our new agents, is we are teaching people to sell a commodity instead of a belief system. And here's what I mean by that. Real estate brokerages are commodities. Mm-hmm. Real estate agents, commodity. Insurance agents, lenders, like all of these things, like a home loan, a mortgage, that's a commodity. You know, a realtor is a commodity. And we are teaching people to get into the business and just yell at everybody, hey, I'm a realtor and I can help you sell your house. I can help you buy a house. Well, you should be able to, because that's what your damn job is, right? And instead of teaching people to yell that and vomit that all over everyone, we've got to teach people, especially in this day and age of digital marketing and what the consumer is responding to, that selling belief systems and what our values are and who we are as people or as brokerages or as loan officers, or, you know, that is what actually captivates the consumer or whoever it is that your target audience is. And Mark, I think that's what you did. Is you started selling belief system instead of saying, hey, I do loans. Like, no, you don't. You bring an entire package of I've seen the little books that you have for agents and all of these things. You've taught a class for my group. You bring so much more to the table, and it's so important for you to convey to the realtors and the consumers that you work with, like that your value system is this, and this is what, you know, your belief system is, and that is why your business has grown exponentially. And until we as an industry stop just vomiting on people that we sell houses well and, you know, we do our job well, then we're not
asking, multiple offers. Well, gosh, if you've got a post right now, shit,
good.
frick. You know, that's what I mean. Now I will give a shout out to Gary Nordling, fellow heavyweight 28.
Hey, Gary.
By the way, Mark, this is where we all came from. Pleasure points are tacos and beer. What Gary is referring to, if you want more realtors, especially like Gary, tacos and beer are always appreciated.
Tacos and beer always go a long way.
Yes, but Chris Sullivan, Chauncey, Gary, we were all in the same leadership program. And I think that's what's so awesome is to see how 3 years later, maybe we haven't traditionally done business with one another or done anything else, but we've still like been able to do things together and help one another. And I think that's what's awesome. I mean, Chris invited me to to Top Golf for networking. I met you, Mark, and I was like, man, this kid is legit, you know? And that's what's on. I think, I know you got the flickering. Chris,
dude, it's like a ghost or something.
It is October. But no, I think that's what's so amazing is we have this very finite mindset and attitude of what we're supposed to do, what gets us more business, how we're supposed to network, what relationships we're supposed to nurture. And it's all wrong.
All wrong.
All wrong. I literally started an anti-networking group. Like I did. I was like sitting here going, I love the idea stuff. I love having brainstorm sessions and masterminds and doing that. And so I literally was like, I'm going to start a networking group, and the basis is anti-networking, which basically means that the business and the referrals will come by providing value to one another. There is not a have to reciprocate or give business to one another. Those are still successful networking group models, but I went to some of them and I felt like I needed to have a bath afterwards. I'm like, I've got to give snaps and like little checks box, and then if I get a deal, I have to give it to that insurance guy every single time. And I'm like, is it a clip-on tie? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not in alignment. Like attracts like. And so I was like, no, the business and the referral base will come out of natural appreciation for one another. And so that for me, and that was that broaden that infinite mindset. There is abundance over scarcity. And if we can help each other, even if I don't get a referral from one of these people that's in my anti-networking group, they are still able to sit there and provide value to my client base, to my sphere of influence. For whatever reason, I win. And that is the difference. That is free marketing by able to find somebody that provides a solution for my clients, because I don't divorce them at the closing table. In fact, I'm like the plague that continues to like pop by, drop by, send videos, make a phone call, text, do whatever. I've got Halloween buckets, about 60 of them on my floor behind me right now that are going out to my clients. And those are those things. So I'm constantly trying to fill those gaps and those needs and those holes for my clients, because I don't have to spend $50,000 on a marketing budget every year, you know? And that would be great to be able to have that, because I want to look really pretty in all my marketing stuff. But I don't have to spend $50,000 on leads to be able to increase my business and my value proposition. And that's what we need to figure out.
Agreed.
So we've got a little bit of time left, and we've been all over the place. So we've got about 15 minutes left. Something else that we've talked about is affiliate partnerships. Because Chauncey, going back to maybe you have a different brokerage model, maybe there's not training and education and everything else, and talking about how Mark has taught classes to even your group and done masterminds and books and stuff like that. What was your expectation, or what were you taught when you got into real estate as far as choosing your affiliate partners?
So I will say, everything that I've done since I've gotten into real estate has been totally opposite from most people's experience. because I did not join a large brokerage. I was on an island all alone, joined a flat fee brokerage, didn't have any offices, didn't meet anyone. So everything that I learned pretty much was like on my own and was from other people. And I actually learned a lot about real estate from someone that was not even in real estate.
Sure.
It was just a business owner. And I remember him telling me, regardless of what type of business you're setting up, it's all kind of the same. So it's like, think about it in terms of you're opening up a real estate store. And if you're opening up a store, all stores have multiple departments, right? So your job as a real estate agent isn't necessarily to be able to answer every question about everything. So answer all questions about title and about lending and about insurance. But your job as the store owner is to put all of those people under the same roof so that when a client comes into those doors, then you can point them to the right department. So that was how I chose my affiliate partners. Is I looked at people as an extension of my business. They are a department within my real estate store. So I vetted them very well, and I wanted to make sure that they were in alignment with what my business was. Right. But in terms of what I learned from real estate school or my brokerage, I learned absolutely nothing about affiliate partners.
which is awful, but it's also, even in traditional situations, a lot of times affiliates, and I know people might not want to hear this, but affiliates buy the option to come in and talk to the realtors and the brokerage. And so it's not about providing value. It's about providing money to, like you said, the broker, which, again, my mother's my broker, so I can't say it like this, but we are a little different in that regard, which is why we opened up an independent shop, because we felt the same way. Is the broker is not there necessarily to teach you everything you know. You said this yesterday, Chauncey. They are there. Real estate agents are their commodity.
Yes.
And so understanding that, I use the term like cattle with tags. You know, if you treat yourself that way, that's how you deserve to be treated. So for that respect, finding good affiliates, because they're not only the extension of you, they're the last impression they have of you in a real estate transaction. So that's the hard part. If the insurance agent doesn't do their job, if the lender doesn't do their job, if the title company facilitates a piss poor closing, that's on me. Regardless if I brought them to the table or not, it's on me. And so I would implore new agents to really interview affiliates. Gosh, our phones have 72 different calls and spam messages and everything else. Would love to take you out to lunch and talk how we can do more business and refer you more business, Ashley. And I'm like, but wait a second, you guys work with a bunch of agents, so why are you going to refer me business or think you can feed me? Ask the tough questions. Ask the right questions. Ask the questions like, Mark, when I've seen your marketing and you turn around and say, you know, here's what happened. I came in and was able to save the day. We turned this around in 14 days and here's how. You don't just sit there and say, closed another loan in 20 days. You know, I mean, context and meat to what you were able to do beyond maybe the previous lender that was involved or something else.
I mean, people's lives are literally in our hands, right? Mm-hmm. Like real estate and moving your family and literally changing your entire environment. It's a super stressful situation.
Yep. Right.
Like, you think it's weird or it's strange that people go crazy while they do transactions? No, it's stressful. That's what happens. But at the same time, the real estate agent, the same way as me, the lender, we see how many different parties and entities, and it literally takes a village to help service a customer and a client, and to serve in their best interest. And so, like you were saying, Ashley, I mean, your partners are a reflection of you. It's if you're allowing I tell my buyers every single time, I'm not a sales guy. If that's if you guys want a lower interest rate, you guys want lower closing costs, you can go online, you'll find it. I am not here for that. I'm literally here to make sure that your mortgage needs are taken care of for the next 30 years. And there's 100 ways to do a loan. the same way as there's 100 million ways to make $1 million in this business, but none of them make sense if you're not actually happy when you're doing them and they're actually giving you energy. Separate discussion. But at the same time, like it takes a village and it takes a level of empathy, but a level of professionalism to really understand what we can do and the impact we can make. Because I saw it firsthand, right? I told you guys the story. We moved to America in 99. We bought our first home in 01, right after 9/11. My parents were able to use down payment assistance. And even after I graduated high school, which was 2010, companies started in 08. Yeah, we started in the recession. 2010 wasn't pretty in the real estate market, especially in the Northeast. My parents still walked away with 55, 60 grand. They're literally living comfortably today because of that home. That is the impact that we make. Now, whether or not we can articulate it, that's a whole nother discussion.
Right.
But I think that's the whole point. And that's what we wanted to do here today, was talk about, is the market crashing? What are we doing? All of these other things. And the reason why we're having all of those discussions around that is because there's a lot of people playing house, but they don't know how to sell one, and they don't know how to procure a mortgage for one. And so these are the type of conversations when somebody says the mortgage is crashing. Who are you listening
We're
to?
also in a clickbait society, right?
Yes, we are. Absolutely.
Like negative headlines sell. And so like that's the low-hanging fruit that everybody's going to go after to get the clicks and to get the clout. And that's really what it is. But at the end of the day, it's up to us professionals to actually be able to read through the BS and actually be able to, again, articulate it to a consumer that we shouldn't expect them to know what we know.
Right.
Like it takes years, and every transaction is different. And you see scenarios every single day, just like I do, that I still don't know the answer to. That's what makes me love my fucking job. Right?
Well,
like, to be able to solve new problems for people, for humans, and actually make an impact through that, like that's what makes me get up in the morning.
well, and that's, we have a few minutes left. And one thing that we kind of touched on too is there's a lot of disruption in our marketplace. We've got iBuyers. Yeah, it is warranted. And that's what I've said. I mean, gosh, why wouldn't you think we're primed for the picket at this point? Because we resigned ourselves to people that held the data and opened the doors. Well, guess what? Now they have self-showing technology, and the data is online. But if you sit there and you say that's the only thing that we were good at, then we deserve to be put out to pasture. However, that is not the case. I watched my mother. She got licensed when I was 15 years old. And I watched her claw her way to the #1 rookie in her office and the #1 producing agent in basically Rockwall County at that time. And my mom had never been a business owner or anything else. What she did is she went to a training. She went to a Buffini training as a brand new agent. And she looked, and she didn't do the coaching program, but one of their people said, she's like, I can't afford it. This was amazing. What can I do? And they said, look to your left and look to your right. As long as you do what we talked about this weekend, you will do better than both of those people. And it's about execution, but then also the humanity of it. Mark, you've touched on that multiple times. We hold the livelihood of people's futures in our hands, generational wealth, the trajectory of their marriages, happy childhoods, everything in our hands. And I watched my mom do that with all of her clients. And that's what spurred me. She actually told me, please do not get in real estate, go into a corporate environment, get benefits, and be able to move up. So I got into real estate, and I said, any good teenage daughter does, no. And but here we are, and obviously it was a good situation, and I'm so proud to be, because the corporate world isn't the one that gives you stability anymore. And so I'm glad to be able to have my destiny in my own hands, because that's the other thing too. If I'm going to be living in a ditch, it's because I put myself in the ditch, not because somebody else said I deserve to live in a ditch. Right. And so it's that burning the boats. It's finding other things to motivate you, making sure that failure is not an option. And when you are in a slump, figure out how to get yourself out of it. Yeah, I know, Sherry, I never obeyed. And I still don't to this day, but now she's on board with my disobedience. So it works. But there's different things that move different people. And Mark, when you were talking about the fact that you had to get introspective in 2018, mine was about 5 years ago, where I sat there and I said, I'm going to change the trajectory of my family and our business. And I told my mother that. I had a very vulnerable phone call and I said, you know what? We've got to do something different. And it was watching a video on YouTube. And that doesn't work for everybody, but it was Tony Robbins. It was, all the different motivational people that you see, probably Eric Thomas, somebody else. And Tony Robbins did his spiel on burning your boats.
Yes.
And it stuck with me. And I told my mother, I'm pouring kerosene on everything, lighting those biatches on fire. We are going all in, because if there's always a way to escape, we are never going to succeed. And then it was the other thing on the other end of that video was the story of Colonel Sanders. And I don't know if anybody has heard that, but Colonel Sanders, like the guy that created it, had this trajectory of a very sad life and all of these other things and pains and failures, and was poor. And it wasn't until he was like in his 60s where he sat there and contemplated killing himself that he turned around and wrote like a list of goals instead. He was literally going to take his own life, and then became Kentucky Fried Chicken. And that was in like his 60s that he found that success. And for me, I was going so down on myself, going, I should have figured it out by now. Why haven't I done this? Why am I doing this? I've got a small baby, I'm married, all of these things. I thought by 30 years old, I would have, figured it out. That gave me just a renewed sense of peace to know that I have an entire lifetime ahead of me. And so many people that have had immense success also had a lifetime of failures. And I think for our business and for people that are doing this, people need to understand, just because you've been in real estate for a few years and haven't had success doesn't mean you can't. You just have to have your renewed sense for yourself, like Mark found, Chauncey has found, I have found. But you got to burn your boats. You can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out in this marketplace. Yes, Sherry, it's never too late. There was some trepidation, Jerry. And yes, the journey, Gary said the journey is fun.
You got to enjoy it.
Yeah.
You gotta, and I mean, there's so many people that are just completely unwilling to fail and like not let themselves fail. And there is no such thing as failure. As you were talking, Ashley, it's so funny. Every high performer has these sayings that we just have, that we just like literally in our DNA. But for me, it's control the controllables, right? And it's burn the bridges. That very much resonated when I was making the transition. But the biggest one now I can't think of now that I'm talking is, my goodness, now I'm thinking of all of these other sayings, like my fraternity saying, which is really kind of the epitome of how I operate, which is give expecting nothing thereof. But it's what I was going to say was the David Goggins, who's going to carry the boats, because you look around the market and we don't have the market that's going to carry the boats. And I think that is what's so interesting as a transplant in the market, is you look at it and there is opportunity everywhere, because all you have to do is just raise your bar. And if you can just raise your bar and continue to raise your bar, there is no competition. The biggest thing that I've found, and it's my only regret, is not starting a vlog the day I decided I was going to move and leave Maryland. And I have told countless first-time agents, loan officers, literally in every other market and here, nobody will do it. But if somebody was just to literally get into the business, learn at least one, but like 3 to 5 new things every day, and just regurgitate it on camera, not only are they going to actually learn what the hell they're actually learning, it's not just going to be an in and out, but they're actually going to be able to portray that difference, that transition that they're going through, to where you're not surprised where 5 years later they are top 1, top 2% in the market.
Well, and that's huge, Mark, because you hit the nail on the head. And with just a minute left and being cognizant of everybody's time, I want to let Chauncey kind of put her takeaway there. But I will also say with the caveat, Gary V was that person who I consumed a few years ago and said, gosh, this guy did not just get to the place in where he was. And to be able to go back in the vaults and see when he did Wine Library and all of these other things and horrible YouTubes and make all of these mistakes and these investments and be where he is today, he did inspire me.
I have to tell you this Gary Vee story because I had no idea who he was. This was like 2017. I saw something on Twitter. I like retweeted it. I got a message from him and I was like, who does this? Right. And if we were all to just do that and we were all to just actually interact and engage and actually come from a place of contribution, we'd all be a lot better for it.
And that's his mindset. So Chauncey, I'm going to let you end the evening with something that you want to leave our audience as a takeaway. Yes, a mic drop.
Awesome. Two things that I would say, stop selling a commodity and sell your belief systems. And the only way that you can sell your belief system is to expose who you are. And my favorite quote regarding that is, once you neutralize your uniqueness, you don't need courage, because it takes courage to be different. And in running your real estate business, be you, be who you are. Build your business around your life, not your life around your business. Build your business around your joys to attract your ideal clients. Collaborate with other agents, put good out into this industry, and I promise it will bring good back to all of us.
Well, Chauncey, that was a great mic drop. And I echo that with saying, I love wearing graphic tees when I
do. That's like inappropriate things.
Thank you. And this is, if you're going to be salty, bring the tequila. And that's the thing is, like attracts like. I don't want to necessarily attract the person that expects me to be in pantyhose and a suit. So it's okay to be yourself, because when you actually give value, people aren't looking at your suit. Please still bathe and look appropriate. Do not look homeless. I'm not going to do that. But you can be yourself, because like you said, your uniqueness is what gives you that confidence. And that is what I finally figured out going towards 40 years old rather than my 25-year-old self is. That's what makes me amazing. And that's what makes the two of you amazing and why I had you on here today. Again, Sherry Fairbacher, she is like giving all the compliments.
I think she's had a couple more drinks than I have, and I am jealous right now.
She is a 1.5 glass Chardonnay person. So Chardonnay. But she's beautiful. Thank you guys. And I think that's a big testimony, because Sherry is very traditional in a lot of mindsets and has been in real estate for a long time, but she is welcoming this evolution of all of what we were talking about today. And I think that's amazing. You don't have to look a certain way to be cooperative with one another and share the knowledge and the love with one another. And I think, like we've all echoed today, if we just shared a little bit of our knowledge, held each other a little bit more accountable, we can raise that industry standard. And that's what we need to do. So this is not a goodbye. It's just a so long for now. And we appreciate everybody for tuning in. Chauncey and Mark, thank you for taking your evening to impart some wisdom on us. And we will see you guys very soon.